Okay, let's see if we can put together what you have learned before. The fraction part of the exponent tells you which root they want, right? Is this a square root or a cubed root or a fourth root, or what is this? It's a square root. So I can break this up into two parts. I can break it up into 4 to the 1/2 to the 5, right? Because that's the same thing. If I multiply that out, I'll get 5/2. It'll work fine. So why do this? Because you can do 4 to the 1/2 in your head. What is 4 to the 1/2 power, which is 4 to the square root? Square root of 4 is 2, so 2 to the 5th. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. That was 5 times, so 32. Now, should that be positive or negative, or does that get involved in this or not? That's only when you're solving and you have like an x in the problem. There's no x. They told me to use positive 4 to do this too, so I don't have to worry about that. That's only when you're solving equations. All right. Now, this one's a little weird because it's a fractional one, but what's it exactly the same as? 4 to the 2, 4 squared. Well, I know that. 4 squared is 16, right? So why am I going to make you do this one? Because if you do it with the method I just showed you, and you know the answer should come out to 16, it'll prove that this method will work. Okay? Would you please write that one down? Break it up into its two parts, to the something, to the something. Do it in your head, and hopefully you'll find out that it comes out to 16, just like it should. So it's 4 to the what? 1/2 to the 4th, and that's the same as 2 to the 4th, which is the same as 16, and that's exactly what it's supposed to come out to, because this would have been 4 to the 2nd in the first place, which would have been 16. All right. This is the big, long, nasty property that I have tried to sum up for you, but for those of you that wanted to have exactly what the book would have said, that's what it would have said. And I wanted to point out that it is true I could break it up this way. That's the way I just showed you. But if that's true, that because I multiply these, I get 2/3, then this should also be true, because if I multiply them, I'll get 2/3. And in fact, they'll both give you the right answer. So which should you do? Should you do the fraction part on the inside or the outside? Well, let's just do them both ways and find out. What's 8 to the 1/3? That is the cubed root of 8, which is what? 2. 2 squared is what? Versus I do it this way. What's 8 squared? 64. And then I do the cubed root of 64. Well, you know the answer is supposed to be 4, so that's not too hard. But the point is, if you have a choice, you always want to make your problem get smaller and then bigger, as opposed to making it a really big number and then having to make it smaller by doing like a cubed root. Okay, so for instance, if I had a choice and I took the number 144, would you rather square it and then take the, actually let's say cube it and then take the square root of it? Can you imagine how much a pain that would be? 144 cubed. You know that in your head? No. You'd have to grab a calculator. So instead, wouldn't it be better to do 144 to the 1/2 to the 3rd? See what I'm saying? At least you can do part of that in your head. What would it be? What's 144 to the 1/2? 12. And 12 to the 3rd? 12 times 12 is 144, and the only thing I have to do is the 144 times 12 again. And that I don't know in my head, but I can go like this. So it's a lot less work. So what's the point? When you're breaking them up into two parts, you can do it this way, but always do the fraction on the inside. It's much smarter. Do it this way, where you have the fraction on the inside. Do the fraction first. All right. Next thing, would you write one of these down? Let's write this one down. That means the 4th root of x to the 3rd. it asks you to rewrite in the form x to the n, so it wants an x to a power where n is a rational exponent. A rational means written as a fraction, okay? So n is a fractional exponent. So, and then it's just saying, write this as x to the something. And what would it be? Well, the only two choices are 4/3 or 3/4. And here's a way you can remember it. The root part goes on the bottom. Isn't that true in most plants? The roots are on the bottom. Ah, okay. All right, so if I had this one, there's really a, what little number here if I don't see any number? There's really a 2 there. So is this x to the 2/7 or x to the 7/2? X to the 7/2. And if you're having trouble remembering, remember the roots go on the bottom. It's kind of like the guy who was muttering to himself when he's putting in sod. Kept on, and that person was like, what are you muttering over and over again? Green side up, green side up. All right, moving on. 4 to the 3/2. 4 to the 3/2 could be written as 4 to the what? To the what? And that can be done easy in your head. 4 to the 1/2 is 2. 2 to the 3rd is 8. This one, 9 to the 1/2 to the, what do you think I'm going to put? -1, because these two multiplied give you -1/2. And that's 3, and then the -1 makes it flip 1/3. Get that? 8 to the 2/3, that's 8 to the 1/3. Always make it smaller first and then make it bigger. 8 to 1/3 is 3, or no, 2. 2 squared is 4. All right, I did those. You try those while I pause. So here we go. 9 to the 1/2 to the 3. In the front row, Mr. T, what'd you get for this one? Yes, 3 to the 3rd is 27. And this one, 25 to the 1/2 to the 3 to the -1. Notice I did a triple layer. You don't have to, but that's what I'd do. This would be 5 to the 3rd to the -1, and that would be 125 to the -1. And sometimes people forget and think that that makes the answer negative. It does not. What does it do? Flips it 1 over 125. Good. And the last one over there, 32 to the 1/5 to the 4th, and that would be 2 to the 4th, and that would be 16. Raise your hand if you had all three of those right. Good. Let's move on to some other weird things. Like, how do you solve that? I gave you a hint earlier. Anybody remember what we did? Put it to a power. All right, I'm going to remind you this way. When you solve for x, you're trying to get x alone. X sort of looks like it's alone a little bit, but an x that's all by itself should look like this, shouldn't it? Like x or whatever, doesn't matter what that number is. X to the 1, right? So we got to get this power right here to be a 1, and then it'll be solved. So how do I get that 2/3 to change to a 1? You put it to the 3/2. That way, these cancel, and they end up being a 1. X to the 1 equals 9 to the 3/2. That's the same as x equals 9 to the 3/2. So that's x equals 9 to the 1/2 to the 3rd. See what I'm doing here? All the little skills I've taught you. I used enough lines there, but I simplified one thing at a time. Uh-oh. What'd I do wrong? 3 to the 3rd, not 2 to the 3rd. Thank you. All right, 3 to the 3rd, and that's 27. Okay. Whew. And one more. Try that one. I'll pause while you do. So we put both to the 2/3, and then what? Excellent. And then all right. How many of you have 4? Raise your hand. Good. You're all wrong. So what's wrong? It's plus or minus because we did a square root. When we did when we did this part, the x was being taken to a square root that had a square root of x in it. So therefore, we need the absolute value of x, and therefore it's plus or minus.